Good morning, all of you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Yes, any task or any homework given by me in last sessions? Yes, good morning, all. Very good morning. Just tell me any task or any homework given by me in last session, or any reminder from your side, or any queries or any questions from you, Divyanshu, Abhishek. Okay, okay. So I think in the last lecture, uh, yes, in the last lecture, we discussed about the software and the hardware firewalls. Right? Am I right? Okay. So today we will start with the cloud-based firewalls. Yes, in the last lecture, we studied the types of the firewalls. Inside the types of the firewall, yes, here is the types. Right. A packet filter, circuit level, state packet inspection firewall, proxy firewall, application gateways, next generation firewalls, next software-based firewalls, and the hardware-based firewalls. Until up to the hardware-based firewall, I think we have completed up to the hardware-based firewall. Am I right? Okay, okay. So, any questions from your side, or any of the types you want to repeat, then tell me so we can start with that particular part. Okay, so let's start with the cloud-based firewalls. Yes, first of all, uh, questions for you. What is the cloud? Right, I think we've already discussed this thing also in the last session. What is the cloud computing? Okay, Abhishek. Any others? What is cloud?
Sir, it is actually like there is no direct contact with any computer, and there is no any active contact. There is at some place at some server. Like if we are doing cloud computing, so basically in that uh, in any server that OS is installed, and we just run that OS in our computer through internet.
Yes, yes, very good. Good. So, in short, we can say that the cloud computing is the on-demand availability of the computer resources. Right. It is on-demand availability of the computer resources. You just need a device and a internet connection. Right. Also, you can access the cloud-based services from your mobile devices, from your tablets as well. Right. Just log into the platform and you can use all the resources assigned to you or all the resources purchased by you. Right. So, what is the advantages of this thing? Right. What is the advantages? Right. We don't need the whole system with us when we are traveling. Right. If I am on the vacation and still I want to do some of the tasks from my location without the computer, then also I can just log into the cloud using my mobile device and I can do my task. Right. Yes. This one is the advantage. The second advantage is if you want extra resource, right? If you want some extra resource for some particular time, then you don't have to purchase that resource. Yes. If I want to use 1 TB of the hard disk for only 1 or 2 months, then I will just pay the amount to the company's service provider and I have the resources, right? I don't need to physically purchase the drive and it will also beneficial to me in terms of the cost. Right, if I will purchase 2 TB of the hard drive, then it will cost me near about 7 to 8 thousand. But and I don't need this hard disk for lifetime. Right, I just need this hard disk for 1 or 2 months. So I will pay for this period only. Right, so the cloud has so many advantages, and yes, also some of the disadvantages are there. Right. What is the security of the our confidential data? Right. How can we trust the third party service providers? Yes, we know that they are good and they are the big names, right? Amazon, AWS, Google, Microsoft, right? So many companies, so many big names are there in the cloud, but still they are the giant IT companies, and we all know what they will do with our data, right? For the advertisement purpose and for other purposes as well. We have the trust on the company, but what about the employees of the company? Yes, and yes, actually the cloud is based on the data centers and the data servers, right? Am I right? Clouds are based on the data servers and data centers. Yes, and we don't know the location of the exact data center. Right? Maybe our data center will be in the Bangladesh, in the Pakistan, right, or in any other countries which are not politically stable. So at that time, what happens if some of the terrorists will attack the data center? Right? What about our data? Yes. The next thing is the uptime of the server. Right. Right now, it is not a big issue because almost all the service providers will give us the 99%, near to 99% uptime. But at the starting of the cloud, it was the issue. Right, so many times your server is down, your cloud is not accessible. So these are the some of the issues also in the cloud. Right. The next issue, if someone will theft your credentials, right, your user ID and the password of the cloud, or someone will perform the man in the middle attack or the brute force attack on you. So at that time, what happens with your data? What happens with your resources which are on the cloud? Right. So many advantages are there of the cloud as well as so many disadvantages are also. Right. So let's talk now about the firewall of the cloud. Right. First of all, we cleared the what is the cloud and what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages of the cloud. Yes, almost all the cloud service providers are encrypting our data, and after encryption, they are storing the data inside their clouds. Right. So it is the security, and now what about the firewall? Right. Yes, here. Whenever a cloud solution is used to deliver a firewall, it can be called a cloud firewall or firewall as a service. FAAS. Right. It is known as firewall as a service. Now, also, cloud firewalls are considered synonymous with proxy firewalls by many, since a cloud server is often used in the proxy firewall setup. Right. It is also same with the proxy firewalls. Right. We already know what is the proxy and what is the proxy firewall. Proxy is the intermediator between the local local network and the internet. Right. It is the similar as the proxy firewalls. It will work between the cloud server and the internet. The big benefit of having a cloud-based firewall is that they are very easy to scale with your organization. Right. If I am improving my organization, if I am extending my organization, right now in my organization, if I have only 100 employees, and in future, if I am recruiting more 50 persons, then now I have total 150 persons, and for this scaling and for this extension, the firewall, cloud-based firewalls are very good and very easy to implement. As your needs grow, you can add additional capacity to the cloud server to filter larger traffic loads. Right. As already we discussed that in the cloud, it is easy to add extra resources. It is easy to remove the extra resources as well. So using the cloud firewalls and the functionalities of the cloud, we can easily filter and analyze the larger traffic loads. So cloud firewalls like the hardware firewalls excel at perimeter security. And so this is the all about the cloud firewalls. Nothing is different in the proxy firewalls and in the cloud firewalls. Both are the same, but the cloud firewalls are totally implemented in the cloud architecture, and it is known as the firewall as a service. Next, we already discussed this thing, stateful firewall. Right. Here is the difference between the stateless firewalls versus stateful firewall. Yes, most IMP questions for 3 marks in the CTU examination, stateless firewall versus stateful firewall. It may be in your exams, it may be in the CTU exams as well. Right. So, what is the difference? First one is the stateless, second one is the stateful. In the stateless firewall, it watches the network traffic and restrict or block packets based on the source IP address, destination IP address, source port number, destination port number, packets type, and other static values. It means stateless firewall totally works on the blocking of the packets based on the source and the destination details. Now, stateful firewall, it will check the traffic pattern as well as the data flow. Now here, what is the meaning of the traffic pattern and the data flow? Right. We already know now what is the DOS attack. Right. So if we have a threshold value in our firewall, and if any of the IP address is continuously sending the packets towards our system, right, and it is crossing the threshold value, means it is creating the high traffic in our network. So at that time, the stateful firewall will check the traffic pattern and the data flow. Right. If any of the IP address or any of the device is continuously sending same type of the data request on the server, right? We already know if we are performing a DOS attack using the LOIC tool, right? At that time, we are sending all the packets of the same protocol. If I am selecting the HTTP, then the LOIC will send the HTTP packets only, right? So the stateful firewall will check both these things: what is the traffic pattern and what is the data flow. Second point, yes, it is vice versa, right? Stateless will not aware of any of the traffic pattern or only for the data flows. It totally works based on the source and the destination. Second point, in the stateful firewall, it is aware of communication path and can implement various IP security functions like encryption. Right. Stateful knows all these things about the traffic pattern and the data flow, so it can, yes, it has the all the knowledge of the particular communication path. If I am targeting your system from particular location, then the stateful firewall will mark my location and keep a record of my location. Right. So also it gives us extra functionalities. IPsec is known as the IPsec, short form of the IP security. Right. It is a bundle of the protocols, or we can say bundle of the functions, which are useful to implement security at the level of the internet protocol, or we can say at the IP level. So one of this is the encryption. Stateful firewall will encrypt all of the communication, right? And after the encryption, it will send the communication to the source and to the destination. If attacker will try to do this thing, then he or she don't know about the encryption algorithms and the key used in the encryption, right? So using this thing, the stateful firewall can easily find out who is the actual user and who is the hacker or try to attack our network. The third point, in the stateless firewall, it does not keep track of the state of network connection, right? It only tracks the IP address and the port numbers. The third point, in the stateful firewall, it is good at identifying unauthorized and forced communications. Right. If you are not authorized person in our institute's network and still you are communicating with someone inside the network, then the stateful firewall will easily find out you and easily block your communication. Stateless. It requires less space and faster compared to the stateful. Right. It is the common thing. If it is not checking the traffic, if it is not checking the data flow, if it is not encrypting the communication, then the speed of the stateless firewall will be high compared to the stateful firewall. Right? It is just common thing. It has less functionalities, so the speed is high. Stateful has much functionalities and much security, then the speed is the low because of the encryption and other IP related security functions. So this is the main difference between the stateless firewall versus stateful firewall and IMP question for the GPU examination. Right. It may be in the 3 marks or the 4 marks, not in the 7 marks. But IMP, right? So mark this as a IMP. Okay. Any questions up to this? Okay. Okay. Thank you all. Now, here is the diagram. Just check this thing. IP address of the client and IP address of the server. Right. Now, what happens here? This one is our firewall. Right. Client is sending an UDP packet to the server. Inside the this packet, what we have, this one is the port number of the server, this one is the address of the server, this one is the port number of the destination, sorry, S for here source and D for the destination. This one is the port number of the source, means this system, and the IP, look at this, the IP is same here, 192.168.51.50, and this one is the destination IP address, 172.16.3.4. Right. So now, if our dynamic packet filter will allow these details inside the rules of the packet filtering, if these details are marked as the allowed detail, then only this packet will reach to here server. Now, again, when the server will reply this packet, here is the reply in the same pattern. If it is granted by the dynamic packet filter, then only this packet will reach here. And here is the example in which if this packet is not as per the rules and as per the uh, policy of the packet filtering, then this packet will not allow to enter the network. Right. Yes, it is inside the network, inside the communication channel, but before reaching to the destination, the firewall will block this whole packet. Right. So this one is the simplest the diagram how the communication will take place and what is the information inside the any of the packet, right? And using this information, any of the firewall can block the packet. Right. Now, network address translation, it is also in your computer networks. Yes. Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Vivian, please.
Um, Sir, among all these firewalls, which kind of firewall Windows provides?
Windows is providing us the software firewall, right? And it is totally based on the applications. Let me show you this thing. Okay, fine.
Yes.
Let me show you this thing. Right. So this one is the totally based on the application. Right. Look at this. Just read this. allow apps to communicate through Windows Defender Firewall. If I am not allowing any of the app from here, then the communication for that particular app will be blocked by the firewall. Right. This is totally software based and the application based firewall. Look at this. The first option is here as the allow an application or feature through Windows Defender Firewall. Right. So here this one is the thing. Yes. If you have the experience of the gaming and if you are playing the online games, at that time maybe you have a pop-up here in the first attempt of the game, and inside the pop-up you have to allow that particular game or the exe file. Right. Have you any experience, Divyansu? Right. At that time, also we are allowing particular application only. So the firewall inside the Windows is based type of the software firewall and totally based on the applications and the features we can say. Am I clear?
Sir, sir, is it
Yes.
stateful
Yes.
or stateless?
It is stateful or yes, it is
Sir,
stateful because it is monitoring the packets and the flow. It is stateful.
okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, sir.
Okay. So once again, Windows firewall inside the Windows is totally based on the software because we don't have any other hardware for the particular firewall. It is based on the software, and also it gives us the functionality to allow particular applications in the features. So it is also based on the applications, and it is not filtering the traffic based on the IP address and the source address only. So it is stateful firewall also. Right. Now, this is all about the Windows firewall. Clear? Okay. Okay, yes. One more thing in the Windows firewall, if you want to use this firewall as a stateless firewall, then also you can set this thing in your settings of the firewall. You can also filter the traffic based on the IP addresses and the port numbers. But this one is not the default settings. You have to uh, do this thing by yourself, right? That's why I tell you that this one is the stateful firewall. If you want to filter the traffic based on the IP address, then you can. Now next thing, network address translation. It is also a part of the computer network, right? So you will study this thing in the networks, computer network subject as well. Now, network address translation, the short form is NAT, is specially designed for IP address conservation. Right. It is the method of connecting multiple computers to the internet using one IP address. Right. Let me show you one thing here. Uh, this one is the, let's say that this one is the internet service provider, right? And it is giving us a cable. Here is our internet service provider, and the cable is given by the let's say that this one is the BSNL, right, or Geo fiber, and the cable given by this provider is containing only one IP address, right? Only one IP address. Now, in my organization or in my home, we have multiple device, right? Device 1, device 2, device 3, and device 4, and we have only one IP address or the one cable. Now at that time, let's say that the IP address of the cable given by the is something like this 10.1.1.1, and we have here four devices we have to connect to the internet, so it is not possible to give the same IP address to four devices, right? Because it is the unique address of the device, and only we can use single address to with single device. So what we will do here, we will use here either switch, right, or router or hub. The incoming cable is here and the four outgoing connections are here. Now, the IP address of this device is right 192.168.1.1, 192.168.1.2, right, point 3 and point 4, and so on up to 255. This one is the, so converting this IP address given by the internet service provider to this type of the IP address is known as the network address translation. Right. Am I clear on this? What is the network address translation? We have only one cable from the internet service provider and we have multiple devices. At that time, we have to divide the internet between all these devices, and the technique used to perform this thing is known as the network address translation. Right, so here is the thing, network address translation. NAT is method of connecting multiple computers to the internet using one IP address. The third point, it enables private IP networks that use unregistered IP address to connect to the internet. Right here in our figure, these all are the unregistered IP addresses. These are not registered to the internet service providers or internet directory. Right, so these are all the unregistered IP addresses, and if I am using the router at my home, then I also have these IP addresses, and if you are using the router at your home, then also you have these IP addresses. It means this network, this network is totally private network, right? The IP addresses of the private network has nothing to do with the internet. Only this IP address is given by our switch, router, hub, or the network admin. Yeah. So fourth point, NAT operates on a router, usually connecting two networks together and translate the private address in the internal network into legal addresses before packets are forwarded to another network. Right. As I tell you that the NAT operates on a router, and the router will give us the all the IP addresses inside the internal network. So this is the all about NAT. The last point, Here in the figure, yes, we have a figure also here. Right. Here in the figure, we see that NAT router operate between the here. Right. Let me show you this thing. As we discussed this thing, same thing here, right? This one is the our host. This one is the router who will perform the NAT. This one is the internet, and this one is the private network. This server is of the internet service provider, right? So here is our NAT, or we can say the router. So what happens here? This is the our default gateway, we can say, or the source IP address for this home, right? This one is the source IP address. Now look at this. If a packet goes or originated from the host, means this IP address is in the source IP address. Now what is the destination of that particular packet? The destination of that packet is here. Right. Now, as soon as our packet will reach to our router, now the source IP address will be changed, and it is from the router's IP address. Right. So this one is the net here to here. If our packet will go outside the our private network, then the source IP address will be of our network router or NAT mechanisms. Right. Look at this. Actual source address is this one, but because we are performing here NAT and we are using the router, so the changed source IP address will be the router's IP address. Now here also, this one is the reverse pattern for the destination, right? If here it requested first one packet, right? And inside the request, this is the pattern, source IP address to destination. Now, the server will answer that particular request, right? So the server will answer this request. So in the answer, what is the destination? First, the destination is of the firewall, and after the crossing of the router, it is router, not firewall. Sorry. First, the destination IP is of the router, and after crossing the router, the destination IP will be changed to the particular host. So this is how the net works. Network address translation. Right? Am I clear on this thing? Yes, currently India is working on the IPv4, and the transmission from the IPv4 to IPv6 is currently in the progress. Some of the countries are actually working on the IPv6. IPv6, right? Currently, we are using the IPv4 because all of the old devices are not able to work with the IPv6. So first of all, we have to change the uh, NIC cards of the old devices, or we have to wait for some of the years. So the devices will be not in the use, and all the new devices have the capabilities of the IPv6. Right. Yes. Also, the world is transforming to the into the IoT, and now so many devices are also based on the IoT services. Right. In the IoT service or in the IoT architecture, we have to provide each and every device a unique IP address. And using the IPv4, it is not possible to assign all the devices a unique IP address because the size of the IPv4 is only 32-bit, and using this 32-bit, we can only generate limited IP addresses. Right, but the size of the IPv6 is 128 bit, and using the 128 bit, we can generate so many extra IP addresses. Yes, second thing also, in the IPv4, yes, please 1 minute, please 1 minute. In the IPv4, we have only the decimal values, and in the IPv6, we have the hexadecimal values as well. So using the hexadecimal values, we can generate more extra IP addresses. Right. So this is the reason behind the use of the IPv4 instead of the IPv6. But in the near future, we all must have the IPv6 in our devices. Yes, now your question, please. Yes. Okay, repeat once again. Yes. So the question of the Divyansu is why generally IP addresses are in the IPv4, not in the IPv6, right? In the India, currently all of these service providers are working on the IPv4, right? But in the near future, we have the IPv6. We have some limitations because of in the IPv6. All of the devices or all the older devices are not capable to work with the IPv6. All the NIC cards are not capable to work with the IPv6. Right. Second thing, currently all the connections or all the networks are totally based on the IPv4. If we are changing the IPv4 to IPv6, so we have to redesign all these connections, all these private networks, and also if any of the device is not capable to work with IPv6, at that time we have to change that particular device as well. So it is a long process. Yes, not only the NIC card is responsible for this thing, but other devices also, right? So many internet service providers are not able to. Okay, Sonu. Okay, I think you want to repeat this thing, IPv4 and the IPv6. Okay, so just yes, first let me clear this thing. This one is not only because of the NIC, but some of the networks, other devices also, like the router, switch, and hubs are also not able to do this thing. And second thing is the NAT of the IPv4 is not will not work with the IPv6, so we all have to change the NAT also, right? And this is the reason. Now, if Divyansu, this is the reason, and if it is clear, then let's go to the Sonu Kumar's question. Okay, so yes, Sonu. Here, let me clear this thing first. Now, this one is the our simplest communication or simplest model currently we all are using. Right. Here is the internet service provider. If you are on the Geo, right, then your internet service provider will be Geo. Right. Here is the our internet. Next one is the router. If we are at the home, then this one is our router. If we are in the mobile network, right, directly connected to the internet, at that time the our service providers tower, right, is working as the router between us and the internet. So let's we take here the example of our home only. Right. This one is the Geo fiber, and uh, this one is our router. Let's take this one is the, we can say that TP link is our router, and this one is my PC. Now, whenever I will connect to this router, right, for internet use, at that time the router will give an IP address to my device. This one is the IP address given by the router. Let me show you the live thing on this. Currently, I am connected to the institute's Wi-Fi. Right. So let's check the IP address of my device. Right. Here, look at this wireless LAN adapter, Wi-Fi, and IP address 10.80.3.28. It is given by the Wi-Fi router. Right, this one is the given by the router. So here, now, whenever this PC is surfing something on the internet, right? Here, this person wants to visit www.google.com, right? So our request will be looks like this, right? Our request will be like this. Yes, please wait, Divyansu, wait for 2 or 3 minutes. First, let me finish this thing. So here is the, our request is looks like this thing. The source IP address, who is the source? This system is source. So here is the source IP address. This one is the destination IP address, means this one is the service provider's IP address. Our request for accessing google.com will go to server, right? So destination IP address 200.100.10.1, and the source IP address is this. Now, whenever our packet will cross this, right, when our packet will cross the router, at that time, now the source IP address will be of our router. If I am capturing a packet from here, internet, right, if I am capturing this packet is from here, private network, and this packet is from the internet. If I am capturing the same packet from the internet, then the source IP address will be of this router, not the actual address of the host, because this router is assigning IP address to host. So others will not aware of this IP address, or others will not aware of the range of the IP address inside the private network, right? So here we have only single communication line, only single IP address, and this IP address is given to the router. What router will do? Router will divide this IP address with others computers, and these computers are sending first request to the router, and router will uh, pass this request to the internet. So this one is the network address translation. Here is the network address translation. The actual address of the request is this, but due to the router between the internet and the private network, the request or the IP address will be of router. So here in the reverse order, vice versa, the request is here. Right now, the base given by the server to this host. Right. So first here the IP address on the response. The destination IP address will be of router only. Right. Look at this. After reaching the packet to the router, router will pass this packet to particular host, and the IP address of the destination is now 10.0.0.1. So this is how the network address translation works. The router is behind the NAT, and router will change the IP address of the source and the destination. Am I clear, Sonu? Okay. Yes, Divyanshu, your question, net by default convert in IPv4. No, this is not that. If we are on the IPv6, then net will be convert only in the IPv6, and if we are on the IPv4, then it will convert on the IPv4. No, the mechanism for the IPv4 and the IPv6 is different in the net also, right? So this is not that our net will convert the IPv4 into IPv6 and IPv6 into IPv4. For both of the IPv4 and IPv6, we have different logics and different techniques to perform the NAT, because it is totally based on the values of the IP address, on the decimal and on the hexadecimal, right? So IPv4's net will not support the IPv6 because it is totally on the hexadecimal. Clear? Okay, good. Yes. Any other questions, students? Any questions from your side? Okay, good. Now, in the previous sessions, we've already discussed about the port forwarding. Yes, which are the tools for the port forwarding, or we can say port redirection tools. Yes, I want the answer from your side because we've already discussed these tools. Nessus is the vulnerability scanner, Asif. Yes, also you can use the Nessus, but we have discussed some other tools. Yes, remember all these things. Port forwarding tools. No? Okay. What is the TCP dump and win dump? What is the use of the TCP dump and win dump? Yes. Yeah, so this will happen with you also in the examinations, right? TCP dump and win dumps are not, yes, these are the sniffers, right? Not the uh, port forwarders. So which one are the port forwarding? Or we can say that win relay. Is it port forwarder or port repeater? Win relay. Yes, good. Data pipe and F pipe are the tools used to forward the ports and redirect the traffics on the particular ports. Right. So in the next lecture, again, we will discuss port forwarding, right, and the all these things. What are the sockets? And one of the most IMP question, Snowd, it is a IDS as well as the IPS, intrusion detection system, and the intrusion prevention system. Very good, Arshit. Right. Uh, okay. Attendance time. First of all, EC1. Okay, it's okay. Yeah. Yes. EC2. Yeah. EC1. And other can left the meet. Thank you, all of you. And if anyone is not able to write down in the chat box, then just wait for 1 or 2 minutes and tell me your enrollment number via your microphone.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. I have a doubt regarding this, but it is kind of out of syllabus, sir. My question is that there are so many websites like Omegle or anything which allows you to talk with strangers and anything, and it does not require any kind of ID or anything. So,
Yes, yes.
and my question is, sir, that they are saying that they do not record anything, the chats or the messages, but the privacy and policy says that whatever you type or whatever whomever you person talk with, it's saved to the
Yes, yes. Yes,
server to
yes.
for 6 months. So, sir, my
Yes.
question is, they do not allow to use VPN also, and they can clearly see our IP address and all the things. So, sir,
Yeah.
is it possible that some random stranger can get my IP address and can break into my
Yes.
system?
Yes, it is totally possible. With and yes, I don't trust this type of the privacy policy as well, because they have to just write down this thing. But it may happen that they are not following all these things. Right? We already know about the current issue between the government of India and the Twitter and Facebook and WhatsApp. Right? They are just writing down all these things in the policy, but they are not actually following all these things. Right. So it may happen that if your IP address is visible to some of the strangers, then they can target your system as well. Right.
So my
So
question is that is it kind of safe to visit this kind of
no, no,
sites
no,
or
no. It is not safe. Just you, if you want to still visit this type of the websites, then use the Tor browser.
sorry
Right.
sir, can you say it again, which kind of browser?
Tor, Tor, Tor
TO.
browser.
Okay sir, and sir, what are the possible threats if someone get my IP address, so they can,
Uh,
what kind of harm they can do
they
into my
can
system?
yes, they can send the payloads to your system. This payload will open the backdoors in your system, and then they can access your system as well. Other thing, they can transfer their particular task to your system. Right? If their system is not able to complete some of the tasks, then they will transfer their task to your system, and in the background your system is performing these tasks. So while performing these tasks, you may face some of the difficulties in your regular activities, and you think that your system is slow, but in the background it may happen that someone else is using your system via the this type of the open doors. Right. Also, they can install. adwares and the spywares in your system as well. Right.
Okay, sir.
So
So you recommend that visit this kind of site is not safe entirely.
no, no, don't visit this type directly from your browser or directly from your mobile devices. Use these type of the browsers, Tor browsers or any other onion browser. And yes, it is also available in the Android devices as well. Right. Tor browser is available in the Android as well.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Any other questions? Abhishek, Manish?